Good morning. It's Monday morning again. Winds howling, as Geralt says. We're going to do some smashing of the landscape this morning. So that's what we've got in front of us. So this is our medieval period hill, and these are the medieval ruins of our landscape. And when we're trying to do what we're heading towards in our demo is a total slice of time on this hill, and where we start with some ruins, and here we have them. These are the familiar old ruins that anybody who's been following the development progress for quite a while now is well familiar with these ruins. One thing that we're going to do is that when the user first sees this, they just encounter the ruins of the tower here. And the landscape is kind of built up over these broken pieces of the foundations. So I need to sculpt the landscape to go over these foundations and go over these bits of rubble and things like that here. And then we need to break that up. So we need to smash up this landscape into lots of different pieces, and we're going to do that using the Voronoi fracture algorithm in Cinema 4D. Other 3D software also has Voronoi fracture. I mean, you can see that's what I've done exclusively to all of these ruins. We're going to do that because when the user the first time they click on part of these ruins to rebuild it, the topsoil is going to kind of magically fade away. It's going to remove itself, and we need the fractured landscape in order to do that. We've got two methods of doing that. One method is a whole lot less processor intense than the other. One method is run wholly in a shader, and one method is not. So I'm favoring the shader-based one. Surprise, surprise. But I've got some questions about whether I can port that shader over to Unity 2020. So I was doing a lot of tests this weekend, and I was able to remake some of my very key functionality in 2020, which is a really good sign. Took a little while to do, but I was able to do so. But I've still got some of these special shaders, and we're going to see if we can actually rebuild them in 2020, but not today. Today we're going to prep the landscape here so that we can see this ruined bit. And I know this is jumping forward in time a little bit, and I don't have the Anglo-Saxon landscape done. I need to ruin that building first and then do a similar process to it. But we're going to start with this one. So let's get going. So I've got the medieval fill landscape. I've got the topsoil tiles, which are just this plain smooth landscape here. That's what we might run into at one point in the game. So I'm going to leave that intact, and that's already imported into Unity. But I've gone back to my kind of original. I mean, it's not divided into tiles, but it does have the edges ready to go, which is nice. I think the edges are ready to go. Let's take a look here. Yeah. Not 100% ready to go, but that's okay. We'll fix that. Just down here on the edges, these things project into the landscape a bit. Doesn't matter. This one is so thin. But anyway, we need to sculpt this and carve this up. So this is a single object. We're just going to grab this, make a copy of it, put the original away so that we don't keep messing with that. And we're going to start carving this up. Not carving it, we're going to start pulling the landscape over the ruins here. And I'm showing you what we're heading for. Here comes the old soil. So it's all nicely color coded up. But this is the old platform back when we were working in a different kind of area. I wonder what was going on archaeologically over here. What was I planning? I don't know. So anyway, this is the old soil that we had, and you can see how the old soil covers over all of the ruined foundations of the rest of the building and about half of the nave foundations. Although, strangely, this pile here from the tower turret is not uncovered. So we're just going to kind of build up our landscape around this. Shatter it with, smash it all up with Voronoi Fracture. Choose the bits that overlay ruins. Choose the bits that just overlay regular landscape. Combine them all and keep moving forward. So that's where we're headed. Okay, so that's quite a bit. Right. Let's jump into this and see what we can do. Let's turn our quick shading on. There we go. And let's turn off the rubble. There we go. So now we just have the intact, so to speak, bases, and we're going to start building this up now. So let's grab our topsoil here, grab that. Let's get into our brush tool. And we've got a 200 centimeter radius to it and a 5% strength. And its mode is surface. That's all the stuff we need, I think. Let's see what this does to our topology here. And we've got a linear fall off, which is good enough for us. So we're going to just start painting along here and covering up the ruins. Let's give it a shot, see what we get. Here we go. Yep. There we go. So we're just slowly building this up. Make that a little taller because it's supposed to be a little taller. This is going to be really tall. This should be taller. This should be quite tall here. This should be really tall. We're not getting too much distortion in the regularity of the mesh here, which is nice. All right, we're going to give that a rest for a minute. Take a look in a more 3D view, see what we've got. It's not too bad. Let's compare this to our old soil. So we got a little high here, and I need to kind of bring it out a little bit more elsewhere. Well, we're doing pretty well, and I'm okay with these brush settings, so let's carry on with it. Let's pull a little bit more out there. We might get into a smaller brush here pretty soon. Let's cover that over a bit. Smaller brush will allow us to add more detail. So we're just going to go over the ruins here as well. I think the old soil covers those completely. Yeah, almost entirely. So we'll keep working on that. We'll work in a top-down view. Yeah, we'll get out a finer brush. We'll reduce the radius basically, and we'll keep working on this. So that one's going to need to be bigger. Let's cover all of this up. There we go. Kind of pull that out a little bit there to indicate that buttress. So this is kind of fun. This bit's good lark here. Keep going. These corners are always going to be higher because there's just more rubble built up here because they're corner pieces and they've got buttresses and things coming off of them. Let's cover up that foundation a little bit. Really bring those corners up some more. Gonna pull stuff out a little bit here. Anyway, this is a little bit of fun this morning, which is good to have. Hope you had a nice weekend. I had a pleasant one. Didn't do much, and that was really nice. Because of rising cases here, I had to close the library that I run. It was my choice to do so. We were not commanded to do it, but I figured with such rising cases, it was best to protect the staff and the community. So I did it, but we're still open by appointment, one patron at a time in the building, and that's going to be difficult to manage, especially because only made the decision on a Saturday. So the community won't really know what's going on. And there'll be some confusion and some anger. So we've got to try to deal with that this morning. All right, that's pretty good. There's some little bits peeking out here and there. The next thing to do is there are some little pieces of, there's some pillar pads here. Let's do another little one there. These are the bases of some pillars. So I'm kind of just roughing this out again. So if we were to change our view to lines based, we would see we've got some little bits of rubble that are going on here as well. Those might just peek out. We'll find out when we bring it into the rest of the game. Okay, what do we got now? Okay, so some of that's a little extreme. Let's go look at our old soil and see what we got with that. Yeah, we're poking out a little bit from the older soil. Not too bad though. Right, so we're going to smooth some of this down. So let's switch our brush to a smooth brush. Where's our smoother? There we go. Let's increase our strength on the smoothing brush to 10%. And we're just going to take some of the edges off this. Really going to smooth this one down. Push that down some more. Push this down some more. Yeah, get most of this to overlay the previous kind of ruined landscape that we have. Alright, if we turn off this soil, I think we're going to see that these hills are much more kind of severe. They really kind of, yeah, they're much more kind of bumpy. If we turn that off and we turn on our old soil again, we'll see how these are much smoother transitions. That's also because the landscape soil is a lot thicker in the original model. And I don't have it very thick here at all. And that's because I didn't want to create a different landscape for every single period of this church. And so I needed it thinner because I'm just going to put floors in the church to cover up the landscape. So I need to kind of smooth out these transitions a little bit here. I need to make these a little bit less severe. So I'm not sure my smooth brush is going to do that. I'm sure it's going to pull stuff up. It might though, if we keep going. It might pull it up a little bit, make it less severe. It's supposed to average things out at least. Right, so let's change our brush power. Just see what happens if we give it a 50% strength. Yeah, that's really going to pull things down. That's a pretty powerful brush there. That's fine. We'll go get a finer brush out and we'll slightly less powerful brush and we'll build them back up again. Well, maybe not even a finer brush. Let's just go back to our surface brush and go back down to a 10%. Just build up a little bit more of this landscape here. There we go. Make it a little more interesting. Lumps and bumps in the landscape. Archaeologists' favorite thing. It means there's a story to be told there. Let's bring those up a little bit. Bring some of these up a little bit, just to indicate there's something going on inside here. A little bit there. Some of these polygons are starting to get really distorted here. That one's kind of epically huge. That's okay. I wonder if a pull is going to do anything for us to kind of fix this a little bit. We'll find out. Nope. Not really. Let's just smooth it down some more. Just generally apply this smoothing brush. Knock off some of the harder points if we can. It's okay if some of the ruins poke out. Now, what if we turn on our collapsed rubble? What do we get? It's okay. It's giving the impression that the collapse is not too far in the past. And that's kind of the impression we want to give here. We're doing smooth. Sorry. There we go. That might do it. Let's turn off the polygons. Yeah, we'll go with this. I don't quite like how these are such regular lumps and bumps. I thought I did a really good job with the old one. That's okay. Yeah, this is a little more subtle, but do we need subtlety? I don't know. Probably not. Yeah, that'll probably work for now. Good enough. Okay. So there we go. So that's pretty good. Now what we need to do is we need to probably break this bit of landscape down into its individual 20-meter tiles again. And we need to brush up these little edges here. These little edge pieces here, they're part of the shader. We need these little edges along our 20-meter sections because we're going to show them one at a time, but also there's a shader reason for that. I don't know to what extent I've managed to mess these up underneath here. So let's find out. Nope, not combined dirt. Turn off the medieval fill. There we go. Yeah, it could use some adjustment. That's okay though. Okay, so let's go split this up again. Anybody would be able to tell that's a parish church under there. But if you're walking around on the landscape, it's just obviously a ruined building. All right. You could probably mess with this all day and not come up with something that actually satisfies me, so let's say this satisfies me. Okay, let's take away our ruined bits for now. And our foundation, we don't need that anymore, just for now. Where did I put that foundation? There's so much stuff in here right now. Okay, that's gone. All right. One of my concerns is, do you see how this is a very regular kind of grid-based low poly look? And that's because it's all quads here. Well, when we Voronoi fracture this up, and we'll only fracture the bits that are actually overlaying ruins, when we fracture this up, that's going to look very different. We may want to fracture the whole surface. This whole landscape, I don't know. I'm still toying with the idea of maybe doing that everywhere, but I don't know. It would make our job a little bit harder. So, we'll see. But first, let's break this up. So I'm gonna make another copy of this so that if I mess this up, I can go back to what I had originally. And let's go into this. There's our grid. Trying to figure out why our grid isn't visible here. Well, I know why. Let's go down to our lines. There we go. That's better. Yeah, we can see our grid gets really distorted here where it's been built up over the ruins. That's okay. It's not a big deal. These edges don't need to be perfect. Okay. So, time to start selecting edges again. So here's one, and we'll do a conversion to polygons, and then we'll put this one away. We'll go back here, restore our selection, we'll do it again. Being careful to get rid of things that we don't want selected. Convert that to a polygon selection, split those polygons off. Go back here. Next one. So hopefully if we have time today, I'd like to show you that I did manage to get that Mesolithic platform reconstructing in a more believable way, or a smoother way. It works really nicely now, but I had to spend quite some time setting things up just so. So I will show you that when we get through that, maybe at the end today. As a little bit of reward for all of us. I don't know if you can hear it, but the wind really is going. It gets very, very tiring, that wind. Oops, let's undo that. There we go. So there's the first 5 tiles. Here come the next 5. Anyway, it's Thanksgiving week here in America, so it means that I won't have a stream on Friday. So I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. If you're in America, happy Thanksgiving. Have a safe one this year. We, of course, did have plans to visit family, but those plans are no longer really appropriate or active. Family is deeply disappointed, of course, and maybe thinks we're being goody two-shoes, but also there was a COVID case at my daughter's high school, and in her class specifically. So she's in quarantine now, so it's nothing we can do about it. The decision was made for us. Just gonna make sure that I've got the edges I want to get and none of the ones I don't want. There's kind of a double edge that you can see here, and that's because of the kind of base of the landscape underneath. I think we're okay with that so far. We'll find out. Oh dear, didn't want to do that. because we need to pick up some of this. There we go. Hopefully that got everything. Now we can deselect that, or split it off, I mean. It'll be nice to have a few days off. Tell you, running a public place right now, like I have to do during my day job, it's getting rather stressful. It's kind of always stressful, but more stressful right now. Our county is still one of the least affected places by the pandemic. We're very fortunate. We're also very rural, which is why. And people are actually pretty sensible here in this county, which is nothing short of a miracle for a rural, remote county. So some people won't understand why I've closed the library down. Well, really severely limited it to one patron at a time. But I just felt it was the right thing to do at this time. Some of my staff are pretty vulnerable people, and our patrons who we serve, a lot of them are relatively vulnerable as well. I mean, I think most of them have stayed away if they felt a concern, but I just wanted to make it easier on everyone. But it does mean that I do have staff in, just staff person without me. They're in the morning, but they have to handle all the people who are going to come to the door and not realize what's gone on, and then they're going to be irate. And then in the afternoon, I deal with the people themselves. We'll see how that works. I think it's going to be pretty rough today, which is one reason why I'm quite nervous. Okay, we're nearly there. Just 5 more tiles to split out. Then we'll have to kind of adjust them a little bit. Sorry we have to do this so many times. It's all part of the game, quite literally. But I'm feeling, speaking of the game, I'm feeling really good about being able to get a demo done. You know, really my kind of impossible goal is to get a demo done by the end of the year. Some form of demo at least. But we're getting there, we're really getting there, which is exciting. There's a lot of pieces to still go on, a lot of pieces to still put in place, but all of these kind of disparate systems that I've been building up over the years, they're coming together and they're kind of working, which is a surprise to me, honestly, because development has been so fragmented in such fits and starts. I have a crazy ambition for this. Crazy ambition. I mean, yes, my crazy ambition is to find a publisher. So I want to get a good demo going, and then I want to try to shop it around. I've never done that. It'd be an interesting experience. It wouldn't be a problem if I didn't get a publisher, but it would also be really pretty cool if I did. So we're looking at doing that. Ooh, did I not? Let's go down here, look. going in and making all of these objects visible in the renderer. Not that that matters, not that we're rendering out of this. So one of the joys of being colorblind is that red and gray are actually pretty close to each other. These little dots here on the side, the top one tells you whether if you turn it red, it turns the visibility of the object off in the scene. I have a really hard time telling just quickly visually if those dots are red or not. So there's a joy. All right, let's group these guys. One group. I'm gonna call this topsoil over ruins group, because that's what it is. It's not necessarily the medieval topsoil. All right. Good, so now what we're going to need to be, well, I need to rename all of these. Bear with me on this. But anyway, the idea is to head for a publisher. Bit of a wild dream, I think. I think it's unlikely, but it'd be really great to be able to do so, but it would require some rather significant changes in my own life. I would have to quit my current job, because the whole point of getting a publisher would be able to get funding to allow this game to be finished. I reckon it would take a couple of years if it was just me working. Who knows, maybe it won't be just me. That's fine too, but anyway, it's a bit of a risk. I mean, I don't actually need much in terms of maintenance to keep going, so it's a pretty good deal, I guess, for a publisher, but yeah, it's a risk to get one anyway. But it would be nice to get some funding to allow some time to do that, but it would require some major kind of restructuring of life. I'm okay with that, but I think maybe there would be some family issues there. But we'll see. Okay. Now, let's get back into it here. Let's turn on our medieval fill. You can see that our topsoil tiles line up very nicely with the edges of that one. So topsoil tile number 1, we don't need to bother with. Let's go to number 2 here. We don't need to bother with that. Or 3, or 4 or 5, really. They're all fine. Well, wait. I do need to bother with them when they kind of overlay, when they come to an edge here, but I think it's so small that I'm just going to leave it. Alright, which tiles? So 6 doesn't, we don't need to bother with 6. 7 we've got to bother with a little bit because of that. I sculpted that. So everywhere where I did some sculpting with the brush just recently, we've got to bother with. So do a little bit on that. 10 doesn't need it. 11 certainly doesn't need it. 12, 13, 14, those are the main ones. 15, I really don't think I got into any. I don't think I got into any sculpting there. 17, did you get anything? You might have gotten a little bit on 17. 18 certainly, 19 certainly, 20 not so much. Alright, so this is the base block of tiles. And on this one I'm just going to, well, you'll see. So let's work on this one right here. There we go. Number 9. Go down to our topsoil tiles. We're gonna solo those out, but in hierarchy. Well, that didn't work, did it? What's the wrong silly one, of course. Let's try it again. No, it's not that one either. Oh my goodness. What are we doing? There we go. Okay. Here we go. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get these edges right here. I'm trying to get them to go sit down on the ground surface, but I've pulled them up a little bit when I did the sculpting. So I'm going to try to get them back down. See, it's just a matter of kind of bumping them up against the surface. Just like that. So these that I sculpted obviously will be quite high from the surface. Why we need to do this is that we have a cutaway shader and it needs to see back faces. And it needs to see back faces forming kind of sealed volumes. And so we need to make these back faces actually kind of seal down with the surface, more or less with the surface below them. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be close. So that's what we're doing. And we might turn on the old combined dirt one as well. So fill combined dirt, tile number 9. There we go. In fact, we don't even need to turn the fill on if we've got the combined dirt. And apparently we've got to go do this all along this edge because I sculpted this whole thing because that's all part of the ruins. At least these are above the level of the dirt rather than below it, like I get when I'm sculpting the fill. When I'm sculpting, cutting like paths and things into the surface. Okay, so that one's done. So 9's done. Okay, we're not going to do this soloing thing. Turn the soloing off. All we want on is our dirt base, and then 9's done. 8 needs to be done next. Yeah, okay. just going to write down the tiles that actually need to be worked on. So there's 7, 8, and 9. 10 didn't need it. 12, 13, and 14 needed it. And then 17, 18, and 19 needed it. Great. And we did 9, so we've got to do 7. And then 8. There we go. Very good. Let's frame this up. There's one more thing to do once we get through all of this. And that is make sure these normals on these edges are lining up. And they won't be, but that'll be something pretty quick to do. Let's just make sure a lot of these might actually be lying on the ground surface already. Okay, so that's on the surface now. Gracious. There, I think we are pretty close. There we are. We're close there. Okay. That's 7. Here comes 9. Or 8, I mean. We did 9. No, yeah. Yeah, there's all sorts of fun to work on with this one. So let's see where we need to start. Okay, that's on the surface. This one is certainly not on the surface. It'll be pleasing to get this into the game because it means we are really going to be we're going to be getting bits of the game linked up. It'll be great. So the player should begin with just a small ruin and then keep building that ruin up, finding artifacts, exciting things like that. Pardon me. And then they should start opening up time travel possibilities. And they should start, with any luck, building up in their own minds what they think happened here. And what I'm hoping is that will keep building and shifting and growing as they learn more and more. That's the big idea. I mean, there's all sorts of big ideas, and I need to kill some of my darlings, but one of the big ideas is that I also want to have the player realize that in this game, at least, the past is changeable. It's always being changed by the present. So I want them to enjoy the ambiguity of it, enjoy trying to come up with their own narrative of what's going on, and then as more and more data becomes available, changing that view. But in the end, I hope, instead of just building up the island, what the player is really doing is building their own narrative, and I hope there are as many different narratives of this island as there are players. I mean, there should be some basic outline, some basic kind of common points. But I'd really love to hear everybody's story here. It'd be such a thrill. It'd be a huge thrill to be able to hear from people themselves what they thought was going on. That would be really fantastic. It's kind of the whole reason I made the game. Okay, at what point do my verts leave the surface? They're pretty much right there on the surface. That one wasn't, though. So I think I guessed correctly. Wow. That one's really not on the surface. Here we are. I think I'm going to go all the way over here. Start on this end. That's on the surface already. That's nice. So I've tried kind of like a 3D snap to surface, and it just doesn't give me very good results. So watch what happens here. Well, I don't know, does it? That is the correct surface for us. I don't know, maybe it does give us a quicker result. Let's find out. Do a little experimentation here. I don't know. It's doing all right. It's a little quicker. Sometimes it jumps onto the wrong thing. I think that's in the past what I was finding is that there were so many surfaces for it to potentially snap to that it would just kind of be meaningless. But, you know, that worked out pretty well, quite honestly. And that looks like it's already pretty snapped to the surface. So if we get rid of that, yeah, that one's fine. Okay, 12's done. Let's go to 13. Boy, I can start just about anywhere on this one. This is one of the core tiles. That one's already on the surface. Let's just see what we can do again. Yeah. See, it's snapping to itself. See, at that point it becomes hard to know really what the correct surface is that it's snapping to and what it isn't, but I don't know what's going all right. See, I just don't trust that. I should have, though. Well, let's keep working on it then. So I did spend some time yesterday, like I said, trying to work with Unity 2020 and trying to get my shaders and things working correctly. It's very different. Kind of drives me crazy that some like really core stuff, really important core stuff that you should be able to do, you just kind of can't. I don't know. It's very frustrating. It was frustrating to me, but also kind of interesting to learn the new systems. Their shader graph is cool and very, very welcome. It should have had a shader graph years ago, quite honestly. But I've been working with Amplify shader graph, and that's still kind of more feature rich than Unity's own built-in one. And it's nice that Amplify works with the universal render pipeline and all that kind of stuff. They've really worked hard to not be made obsolete by Unity's system, new system. But, you know, I always felt that Amplify shader editor was also a little clunky. And that's because I started with shader graphs with the amazing Shader Forge, which was from a user perspective, was a really, really nice system. And it's kind of sad that it was abandoned. I mean, I understand creator wanted to move on to different things and Shader Forge was taking up a lot of their time, but also from my perspective it's kind of a shame that it's not still around. But anyway, the kind of grouchiness I experienced going from Shader Forge, which is so nicely designed, to Amplify Shader Editor is exactly the same kind of frustration I'm finding going from Amplify Shader Editor to Unity's own shader graph. So I suppose I'm just an old man and I just need to get used to something new. And I don't like getting used to new things. I still will use Amplify, I think, sometimes. But I've got lots of questions about, like, I'm trying to squeeze this whole thing into the universal render pipeline. I'm trying to see if I can make it look as good, but behave more efficiently. And be more kind of doable on lower power devices. So, for example, by making some fairly big design changes, but I mean visual design changes, but maybe ones that are better for the overall narrative and playability of the game. So another darling kind of mostly killed. I was able to go from most of the time having at least 3 cameras running and sometimes 5 cameras running to having most of the time 1 camera running and occasionally 2, which is pretty cool actually, because that greatly enhances the efficiency of the game. My shaders are far less complicated now. They're doing far less work. There's still some branching in one of the shaders, and I've had to kind of lose an efficiency in that because the universal render pipeline doesn't seem to allow multi-pass shaders, I have to have one shader for my interior polygon faces and one shader for the exterior, which is a pain. So some of my objects will have double materials. And what's really funny then is that in universal render in Unity now in 2020, like I said, I'm using the universal render pipeline, and I'll put a double material on the same mesh, a mesh without sub-materials, sub-objects I mean, and I get this warning from Unity piping up saying, hey, you've got two materials on the same object, but no submeshes. You really need to use a multi-pass shader. Be like, I would be delighted to use a multi-pass shader, but you don't give me the choice. So that's kind of funny. So I'm kind of wondering, can I use a multi-pass shader if I don't want to write it in the shader graph? If I just want to write it myself, like by hand, which I'm not good at, but I've got some from the current version of this project, so I don't know, I need to experiment with that still. Okay, it's 7:30, I'm running a little bit late. I just wanted to kind of get through part of this. Apologize for it taking so long to do this. We didn't actually get to smash the landscape up with Voronoi. Well, we'll try a little bit of it next time, just so you can see my process, because I'll probably have gotten through most of it tomorrow, but I'll show you my process. It'll be a good reminder for me as well. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I just wanted to show you that that little platform we were dealing with, this guy over here, it now rebuilds properly. So let's show you that. So here we go. Have it enter play mode. So there's still a bunch of shaders I need to see if I can get working in 2020. I need to have my foliage shader that also bends in the wind. I need to see if I can rebuild that. I definitely need to rebuild this water shader, which isn't working in this one right now because I turned it off. Anyway, okay, so there's our idle, there's our platform. Our platform highlights when you mouse over it, which is cool. And you can see that there's only one platform here, so the whole thing highlights. And then if you click on it, it rebuilds. And it doesn't like suddenly shift sides or anything else at the end of the rebuild. So it completely rebuilds. We're going to have a little, you might be able to see that in the ground something's just poking out. So we're going to do a little fracture of this ground here so that when you rebuild this, that bit of ground will go down to the topsoil and you'll see some bones, and then there'll be a little thing to find, a little reward. So it's just one tiny little bit of interaction in here. But it's good enough. And there'll probably be something in here too. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to deal with that, but we'll figure it out. So anyway, just wanted to show you that we had that working. Took a while, but it was really good refresher for my own memory. To remember how that works, and then that's going to help us out when we start hooking up the whole parish church rebuilding that we're working on now with that landscape. So that's what we've got for today. I appreciate you joining me in this, and on Wednesday we'll finish up. We'll get that broken landscape all broken up. I promise you we'll smash stuff, and then we'll get it into the game all running. So until Wednesday, have a good rest of your Monday, a good start to your week, and we'll see you Wednesday morning. Bye.